Pauahi, a Hawaiian princess. There once was a princess who lived in the kingdom of Hawaii. Her name was Bernice Pauahi. She was born in Honolulu on December 19th, 1831. She was named after her mother's sister Pauahi. When just a baby, her auntie Pauahi was rescued from a fire. The word Pauahi means destroyed by fire, burned to put out a fire.
Konea and Pauahi parents. The father of the princess was a high chief. His name was Abner Pauahi. The mother of the princess was a high chiefess. Her name was Laura Konea. Konea was the granddaughter of Kamehameha the Great. So that made the little princess a great-granddaughter of Kamehameha the Great. The little princess was less than a week old when she was given to her grand aunt Kina'u, the highest-ranking chiefess at the time. It was the custom to let a relative ha'anai or adopt your child. Kina'u is now Pauahi's foster mother, and Kekua Nau'a was now Pauahi's foster father.
Home. When Pauahi was 7 years old, Kina'u had a baby girl named Victoria Kama'amalu. A year later, Kina'u had died and Pauahi was sent back to her parents, Pauahi and Konea. Pauahi's parents had ha'anai, a little girl. Her name was Lydia Lili'u. Pauahi and Lili'u were now foster sisters. Years later, Lili'u became Queen Lili'uokalani, the last ruler of Hawaii. School. Kamehameha III said, "My kingdom shall be a kingdom of learning." He knew that if a king or queen were to rule wisely, he or she must be educated. Many people from other countries were coming to Hawaii. The king did not know the English language very well. He made plans for a school where students would learn the English language. While the new school was being built, Pauahi went to a day school. She was 8 years old. 2 years later, the new school was ready. It was built behind the palace and had a classroom, a parlor, and bedrooms all surrounding a courtyard. It was a boarding school where the students would live.
Teachers, Mr. and Mrs. Amos Cook. The school was called the Family School for Young Chiefs, and the name was later changed to the Royal School. The children of the highest rank were taught at this school. Mr. and Mrs. Amos Starr Cook were the teachers who had come to Hawaii from America. They were Christian missionaries. Pauahi was now 10 years old. The school became her new home, and she lived there until she was 18 years old. There were 16 students, 8 young chiefs and 8 young chiefesses. Of the 16 students, 4 of the boys grew up to become kings: Alexander Liholiho, Kamehameha IV, Lot Kapo'iwa, Kamehameha V, William Lunalilo, and David Kalakaua. 2 of the girls became queens, Emma as the wife of Kamehameha IV and Lili'uokalani.
Pauahi the student. Every student had to learn to speak, read, and write English. They were also taught arithmetic, geometry, algebra, geography, astronomy, chemistry, grammar, and history. Painting and music lessons were given. The girls learned to cook and sew. Evenings were spent reading aloud or writing in journals. Sometimes just the boys read while the girls sewed. Horseback riding and swimming were favorite sports. Sometimes everyone sailed to another island.
Music box. When Pauahi was 12 years old, there was a party to celebrate her birthday. Everyone played games, and cake, raisins, nuts, and lemonade were served. A visitor from one of the ships in the harbor brought Pauahi a present. It was a beautiful music box. A group of German sailors sang a song in German and brought fruitcake. In the center of the cake was the name Pauahi, written with colored frosting. When she was 14 years old, a friend wrote that she was the best educated of all the Hawaiian girls. She was a young lady and had much grace. By the time she was 15 years old, she played the piano and sang very well. She gave music lessons to the younger girls. She loved to read lots of storybooks, history books, and books on travel.
Charles Reed Bishop. One day, an American visited the school and met Pauahi. She was 17 years old and very pretty. The American called on Pauahi every evening. The two fell in love. His name was Charles Reed Bishop.
Marriage. The princess and Mr. Bishop were married in the school parlor on June 4th, 1850. Pauahi was 19 years old. Her parents did not approve of the marriage. They had hoped for their daughter to marry Lot Kapu'aiwa, the future Kamehameha V. A year passed. The couple lived in a small house. Then, Pauahi and Kunia invited the couple to live with them in their new home called Haleakala. The princess was very happy. Her parents found Mr. Bishop to be a wise, honest, and devoted husband.
Leaders of Honolulu. Mr. and Mrs. Bishop became the social leaders of Honolulu. Their home was the culture center of Hawaii. People gathered there for music, sewing, reading, and conversations. Children came for piano lessons from Pauahi. Visitors from foreign countries were entertained. They had tea parties, dances, and croquet games. No guest was turned away. Pauahi was known as a very gracious hostess. They had many servants, but Pauahi still helped with the housework and sewed some of her own clothes. She worked in her garden and gathered flowers to take to people who were sick.
Pauahi the teacher. On the day that Pauahi was born, a tamarind tree had been planted for her in the yard of her parents. Now the tree was very big. It was under this tree that she would sit and listen to her people. Sometimes she would sit for hours. Her people would share with her their problems and she would give them advice. Pauahi sent gifts or went to the homes of people in need of something. She would visit a person who was ill and prepare a meal. She taught a Sunday school class at Kawaiaha'o Church. For many years, she was a faithful teacher of children, although she had no children of her own.
King Kamehameha V makes a choice. The princess could have been a ruler or monarch of Hawaii. She could have been a queen of the Hawaiian kingdoms. King Kamehameha V sent for Pauahi just before he died. He had something very important to tell her. He said, "I choose you to be queen," but she refused.
World traveler. The bishops traveled all over the world. They toured the United States, Canada, Ireland, Scotland, and England. Pauahi wrote letters to her cousin. She wrote about the places she saw, the people she met, and the things she did. There was so much to see and do.
Princess Ruth. When the bishops returned to Hawaii, Pauahi continued helping her people. But her cousin, Princess Ruth Ke'elikolani, became very ill, and Pauahi spent many days taking care of her. Princess Ruth and Pauahi were very close and dear to one another. It was Princess Ruth's mom that Pauahi had been named after. When Princess Ruth Ke'elikolani died, she left everything she owned to Pauahi. This included all of her lands. Princess Pauahi was very, very sad. Soon her health began to weaken, and she became very ill. She had cancer. On October 16, 1884, at 12 minutes past noon, she died at Kioahali with her husband by her bedside. She was buried in the Kamehameha crypt at the Royal Mausoleum in Nu'uanu Valley on Oahu. On her beautiful coat casket was placed a silver shield with the inscription, "The Honorable Bernice Pauahi Bishop, daughter of the chiefs E Paki and El Kunia, and wife of the Honorable Charles R. Bishop, born December 19, 1831, died October 16, 1884.
Pauahi's gift. Before Pauahi died, she made a will. In her will, she explained what was to become of her lands. Princess Pauahi established the Bernice Pauahi Bishop Estate, which instructed her trustees to take care of her and maintain schools for boys and girls. And that is how the Kamehameha schools came to be. With the founding of the Kamehameha Schools, 1887, there is no end to the number of children that can be called the Hānai sons and daughters of Bernice Pauahi and Charles B. Bishop. Refusing to rule her people, she did what was better. She served them.